It's the Russian leg sweep. It's the Russian leg sweep. What's up, everybody? It's Saturday. Welcome to the Russian leg sweep. This week we have a special episode. We will be interviewing a firefighter, a podcast host, a radio personality, and the founder of the Nebraska Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, Mr. Donnie Dodge. As always, I'm with my co-host, horrorcore icon Comatose, the founder of Cutthroat Productions.
Hello.
And the co-director of the Nebraska Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, actor extraordinaire, handsome boy modeling school graduate, Mr. Mikey Taylor. How's everybody doing?
Doing wonderful, Mike. How about you, sir?
I'm peachy keen, jelly bean.
Yeah, you are.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Donnie, how are you doing?
You know, I'm doing good. Just enjoying my day inside. It's a little warm outside, and I just figured I'll come in here and talk some wrestling. And I can't wait. I'm going to try and position my giant square head to block the sunlight coming through the window behind me. But I'll do my best.
Well, Donnie, I want to really thank you for doing this interview, not only for the obvious, but you are delaying the inevitable for us of watching 1996 WCW's pay-per-view uncensored. And we're extremely thankful for that.
It's the end of Hulkamaniac,
sadomasochist. I like it.
Mikey, you're gonna facilitate this, so we're gonna turn it over to you, and let's get to talking.
All right, yeah, and I just want to say, thank you for joining us, Donnie. And we've got what I feel are probably I'm joined by three of the biggest wrestling fans I know, so this should be good.
Absolutely.
So to start off, Donnie, explain how you became such a fan of pro wrestling. Where did your fandom begin, and kind of lead us through how you got to the point where we're at today.
Sitting at my dad's feet on Sunday mornings, watching AWA live from the Channel 7 studios. It was fun. It was athletic. I've always been an athletic guy, so it's just I was really drawn towards it. I knew there was no way in hell I was ever going to make it to the NFL, and college football was even going to be a question. But I knew that maybe wrestling was going to be an avenue that I could excel in. I've always been kind of a smart ass. I know I don't come off that way. I don't know why people think that about me, but I love the presence of how these guys were selling themselves. Even at a young age, I was picking up on the nuances of the wrestling. And so you go back to, so it'd be the late 70s when I was probably 7, 8 years old, 79, 80. I'm watching that, and then you get the Saturday night's main event pops up out of nowhere. I had no idea it was even going to be on. And that first Saturday night's main event was, it's the precursor to Raw and to Nitro, because it wasn't just 30 minutes of squash matches. You know, it was you actually had lineups, and you know, growing up in North Bend, we didn't have the option of pay-per-views. Back then, you had to have a satellite, or you had to drive into Fremont or Omaha and watch it in a movie theater. So, you know, I always gravitated towards it because I love the storylines. I was able to, I'm theatrical enough that I was able to suspend belief for a little while and just kind of let them take you on the ride and let them guide you into the story that they're trying to tell. So very young age, very, very young age.
So, and then as it progressed, and this is before you actually got in the ring, you had some experience with hosting some wrestling events, and I was present for some of those. Like, you know, like I said, I've known about the last 25 years. Mm-hmm. So what led to like you getting involved in hosting these events and actually hosting live events?
Well, it turns out I was the producer of the Todd and Tyler show from officially hired from '96 until October of 2002. I was part of our show from nearly day one as what we called running characters, guys that would call in, and that's, Mikey, where you and I met. Was being running characters on the Todd and Tyler show. They would bring you in. We would do skits, we would do bits on the radio, or we would just call them 2 or 3 times a day to kind of make the show funny. And so, you know, I once I got hired at the radio station, anytime that one of these wrestling companies came to town, they needed somebody to host it. Well, Todd and Tyler hated wrestling. They didn't get it. They don't understand it. They despised wrestling and anything to do with it. They'll take your money for commercials, but they're not going to host anything. I was literally the only one at the radio station that loved wrestling. Not just liked it, but I loved wrestling. So when the tickets went on sale for a WWF event or a WCW event at the Exarban Arena, I got to go and I got to host these events. When the events would happen, when dark shows would happen, they would let me go up into the ring and make announcements, and so I kind of took that over as I'm gonna make something of this. I'm gonna make a bit. I'm not just gonna be some stooge that walks up there, hey everybody, thanks for coming to the wrestling and listen to Z92. No, I'm gonna have some fun with it. And the easiest way, especially when you've got 4 minutes, they give you 3-4 minutes to do your thing. You're not allowed to touch the ropes. You're not allowed to jump off anything. You're just out there to talk. And so when you've got that limited amount of time, I thought to myself, I got to go heel. And especially with the morning show that we had, I mean, we was just about, they said, what? They did what that morning? So I'm like, this is a piece of cake. And what's the lowest hanging fruit? The lowest hanging fruit to be a heel in the state of Nebraska is to dog on the football team and their fans. I'm a huge Nebraska fan, obviously. But it's too easy. It's too easy. It's cheap heat, as they call it, cheap heat. So I would put whoever Nebraska happened to lose to, I would put that jersey on underneath another shirt. And so it was the Civic Auditorium, and there was 8,000 people in that place. And I have never felt that type of hate. That I could actually feel their boos, because I get up in there, and McMahon was a heel at the time, and so I just said, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I was just in the back talking to my good friend Vince McMahon, and we were discussing the one thing that everybody in this state absolutely loves. Man, sure is hot in here. So then I take my shirt off, and I've got a Miami Hurricanes jersey on. And it shook my fillings. It was so. This is when I realized too that a lot of fans, they can't suspend belief, and when you insult them in the ring, the workers, they gotta go in and hide in the locker room area. Donnie didn't think that through. Donnie just goes sit out in the crowd. And as I'm getting out of the ring, this guy is up on the railing, just screaming at me, I'm going to effing kill you, I'm going to follow you home, and I'm going to murder your kids. And he's taking this seriously. And that's when it clicked. Shit, I don't have another shirt to put on. I'm gonna walk around the building wearing this Miami Hurricanes jersey, and everybody's gonna recognize me. And I got to sit like 5 rows behind the guy that just threatened to kill me and my kids. So I get to the curtain, and JBL is standing there, and he kind of looks around. He looks down at the jersey. He goes, "Cheap heat. It's good heat, cheap heat, kid." So they end up giving me a T-shirt. One of the guys backstage is like, "Hey, you know what? I can't let you go out there because you're gonna die. You're gonna die if you go out there." So they ended up getting me like this 3XL. I looked like a little kid in a nightgown, but it kept me alive. So those led to the Monday night watch parties at Hooters. There was a 2.5-year period I spent every Monday night at Hooters, whether it was for Monday Night Football, working remote broadcast for Todd and Tyler. The week after Monday Night Football stopped, it went right back to WCW and WWF. We had 2 huge projection screens on either side of the room, and you got Raw on one and Nitro on the other. This was the golden age of the Monday Night Wars. We watched all 83 weeks as a group, and depending on what was happening on the screen, we could switch the audio over and listen to that. And there'd be weeks that there'd be 30 of us there, and then there'd be weeks that there were 250, 300 people there. And it was the majority of the people that were there were all of one mind. We loved wrestling. We absolutely loved wrestling. We loved talking wrestling. We loved just being around other people that loved wrestling, that weren't being mocked for loving wrestling. And so that's kind of how I started to get involved, like you said, hosting these wrestling events. And it really truly just came down to I was the only one in the building that loved wrestling.
So, and there are some stories that I know that I want to get into later about some of these times that you hosted. There's a couple stories that I want you to tell later.
Sure.
But so that led to you actually getting in the ring and training. So yeah, talk about how that led into you actually training.
So actually, the anniversary of it was Hogan and Rodman was the very first impetus of getting in the ring. And so we were talking about Hogan and Rodman on the morning show. And so me and my buddy Tony decided, Tony's 5'0" and 100 and so he was going to be Dennis Rodman. We did a live broadcast at, I believe it was a Maristar and the sports bar. And so we were going to do a hardcore match because we didn't have a ring. And so I dressed up like Hulk Hogan and he dressed up like Dennis Rodman, and we beat the living piss out of each other for about 10 minutes, threw each other through some tables, and it was Tony came over. We were going to practice some of the stuff so we didn't look totally stupid. And so we're in my 3rd story apartment, and we're like, all right, well, we got to should we do a suplex? And he's like, I don't even know how to do that. So we were like little kids. We pulled all the cushions off the couch, and we had a futon mattress, and we put it right in the middle of the living room. And I'm like, all right, come here, Tony. And so without even saying anything, or like a 1, 2, 3, or giving him I just locked it in and flipped it over and held him up, and just both of us flat bump onto this futon mattress, knocked the wind out of both of us. And he goes, yeah, I think practice is over. So when we were doing the Hooters matches, I'm like, you know what? I think my character name when I first started calling Todd and Tyler was Red Neckman. It started out as Redneck Man, and then it turned into Red Neckman before I became Donnie. And so my wrestling character was Red Neckman, and I came out in bib overalls and just I looked like the redneck that I am. And so we decided I'm going to do a hardcore match, because those are, if you're not technically sound, just beating the crap out of each other with stuff, you can still tell a story with that. And so this thing blew up, and it actually happened on my 27th birthday, May 2nd, 1999. It would have been, yeah. So we had this one of the kids that kept coming to the Monday Night Watch parties. He was the local backyard champion. They have this backyard federation. A lot of these younger kids did, and so he kept coming to them. I'm like, hell, I'll wrestle you. You're actually my size, and so it'll actually be a decent match.
Would that be Dustin from NWWA Hype Gotti?
No, it was one of his buddies though.
Oh, okay.
It was one of his buddies. So we set up the match. We actually had a car that I gimmicked the windshield so I could come off, do a leg drop off a ladder and go through the windshield. I had a spring-loaded center punch, which we use in the fire service to break car windows. You just put it in the corner and push, and when it pops, the whole window explodes. So we did a gimmick on the hatchback of this old AMC Hornet hatchback that somebody gave us to beat up, and I put my head through the back windshield, gimmicked with the fake blood, and we had a couple hundred people out there to watch these matches. And so fast forward another 6 months, I'm hosting an event at the bowling alley in Ralston for pay-per-view passes. And I meet a gentleman by the name of Maury Swanger. Maury came out because we were doing a look-alike contest. And Maury looked a lot like, at the time, he looked a lot like the Giant. He had the longer hair, and he big, burly dude. And so we started talking, and he's like, hey, I hear you talk a lot about wrestling on the radio, and, I'm starting this school. I think you should come out and give it a try. And I'm like, sure, we can talk about that. And honestly, the rest is history. After that, I showed up, and the training began, and Huska was born.
So, and Huska was a OWA hardcore wrestler.
Oh yeah, my gimmick Huska was I was the original hardcore champion, crowned in March of 2001, and it was a lot of fun. And the reason I went with the hardcore stuff is, once again, if you're not as technically sound, I'm basically a self-taught. Up until the OWA, I was basically a self-taught worker, and so there's a lot of things I didn't know. But what I did know is I had a really high pain threshold. I could get hit with a ton of shit, and it didn't really seem to faze me. Maybe it's my big thick head. I was also willing to spend more than I was being paid to buy garbage cans and anything else that I could have, toaster, whatever I needed to go buy to beat people up with. It was going to happen. And it's just, I have always enjoyed the hardcore matches, and that was really in its heyday when it was first coming up. You couldn't watch a Raw without there being one, maybe two hardcore matches, or even WCW at the time. So yeah, Huska was born. Basically, I'm a Husker super fan. So when I wrestled in Nebraska, I was a face, and you go right across the river over into Council Bluffs, and it was easy to be a heel.
Now, who would you say kind of influenced your wrestling style then, if you were going for the hardcore?
There wasn't a ton of hardcore guys to follow back then. I was a big fan of the Sandman at the time, going ECW wise, charisma wise. I always tried to emulate Sting. He could talk. That's obviously where my face paint came from. Just an absolute blatant ripoff of the Sting face paint. But honestly, yeah, I'm more of a Sting guy, and then throw a little bit of Sandman in there. And I know that's a really odd combination, but my style of wrestling is rough, maybe a little bit of brawler if I can pull that off, because I think I can throw a pretty decent punch. But yeah, and then just the hardcore part of it, and just willing to try moves anytime.
Wasn't there a little lesson you learned about face paint?
Yes. So Marty's like, "Hey, brother, you need to get some face paint." I'm like, "I don't know where the hell to get face paint at. I mean, what kind of paint is it?" He's like, "Oh, it's latex paint." It's latex, so you paint it on and then it peels off. It doesn't smudge, so you're not getting stuff all over everybody's gear. You know what? I'll get you some. So he got like this half-gallon jug of red and white, and him and I are sitting around the training center one night, and he goes, "Hey, so what are you gonna do? Are you gonna?" He's a big sting guy too, and he's like, "What are you gonna do your face paint as?" Like, I'll probably just go with Sting. And he goes, "I think you should try that. I think you should try it. There's some brushes." So I go into the bathroom there and I get it all painted up, and it used to go all the way up into my forehead, so it was more of a Road Warriors look to it. And I painted everything, absolutely everything. And I come walking out there, and Maury just starts giggling. And he's sitting behind that desk, and he is just giggling. And then he just starts this bellow, this, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, if you didn't like it, you could have just told me. He goes, "No, dude, you painted your eyebrows. Shit doesn't come off your eyebrows." And he got me. So I spent the next 2 days they were white. They were just pure white. And so my only option was to just start peeling that crap off of there. So I went a good 2 months without eyebrows, and Maury thought that was freaking hilarious. And honestly, it is kind of funny.
Yeah. So in your wrestling career, kind of talk about some of the highlights there. You had some you had some fantastic matches. I saw several of them.
The Vince Black one where I won the title at Night of Champions, that one was fun. It wasn't that we really didn't have much leeway. We were pretty limited for time because I think that show ran about 6.5 hours, and so we were doing a tables match, and there were some really fun spots, some really smooth spots where he got me with the ladder in the corner, and then they had the can over my head. The Jaden Drago was part of that match, and he dropped an elbow from the ropes, and then Vince just come up and just kicked the living piss out of me inside that can. I like the hard. My memories are more of the hard spots that I took or delivered, because we were telling a story, and I think the story was told. You can't break me. You absolutely, you bring in 3 people, you bring in managers, Jesus Christ, the first table I jumped off of a 10-foot ladder and hit it, and the son of a bitch didn't break. I just bounced off of it into the crowd, and that was probably one of my favorite matches. And then I did that one with Stephen King. And we just destroyed each other for 20 minutes. I absolutely loved it. And then the year after that, we got to work a 5-way it was me, it was Jay Fowler, he was working his Superfly gimmick at the time, Pepper Cricket, and Alex Gretzky was the only heel in the whole match, and Joe Dozer, Joey Anderson was in that, and it was a elimination hardcore match. And just to be in there with four of the best, it was an honor to be even to put on my shoes and paint my face to be in the same ring with those guys. So I think that one right now, even though I was the first one out after about 3 minutes, it was like a dream being out there with those guys.
Now I know you told me a story about how you learned a little something about giving a promo to a stack of speakers.
Well, some of these shows that we'd run like the Bourbon Street on Tuesdays, Tuesday nights, and I don't think Maury was getting paid, because I know we weren't getting paid. And sometimes there was 30, 40 people there, and sometimes there was 2. And I was out there cutting a promo on Jaden Ryder, on Drago, and he comes out and we get face to face, and I'm like, there's nobody here, so I just start getting personal with him, and that was, I'm pretty quick witted, so I was throwing a ton at him, And to the point where he didn't really have time to respond. I just kept throwing stuff at him and I dropped a mom card on him. And at that point, he grabs me by the shirt and he pulls me in real close and pushes the microphone down. And he goes, "That's my mom at that table, you asshole." And then he sits back and I'm like, I look at her with and I'm just like, "Ma'am, I had no idea." And so I walked over and I sat down next to her. And I'm like, I apologize. I apologize very much. I had no idea that, what are the odds that one of two people that are in this building that's not wrestling tonight would happen to be the person that I just insulted. So I apologize. And then I got back up and then I went right back after. We just took a little time out, gonna go back there, we're gonna yell at each other. But that was the early days. That was the early days, and a lot of the guys that we had working, they were still learning their promo skills. We had a lot of heels, and we had a lot of guys working heel and attempting to work face. We didn't have a lot of polished guys. We had a handful of really, really polished workers, but Maury gave me a lot of leeway, because he knew that if they handed Huska the microphone, it was going to be entertaining. Or it was going to be a train wreck, one of the two.
Which was entertaining as well.
Absolutely.
Who was it that it was a small crowd and you jumped up on a corner that was just facing the one individual?
Well, when I came out, of course, I didn't have anything original about my gimmick at all. So I would do what Steve Austin did. I'd come in there, and when you're in the big arenas, I'd bring out a Husker flag with me, and I would go out. I'd go to every corner, stand on the second rope, and then I'd jump on. I'd go in and I'd hit every corner. And when you're working at the Bourbon Street, there was one corner that you couldn't actually stand up on the top rope because there was a speaker up there. So I forgot, and so I come up and I hit it. And I hit all three corners, and I went, son of a bitch, I got to do it. So I get up there and I get to the second rope, and I'm standing there because the speaker's pushing on my head, and there's a guy. I think it's the security guy. So there, and I'm playing to him like it's like there's a million people, and he's just he actually got physically uncomfortable. And he turned around and he walked outside to smoke. And so now I'm talking to literally nobody. I'm just standing there with my back to everyone, and I'm playing the crowd like there's 1,000 people there. And it was fun. It was entertaining. I was getting at least a couple good pops in the back from the boys, which is kind of flattering if you want to call it that. But yeah, there was. I actually stood and I just grabbed the mic and I cut the promo to the empty corner of the bar with a speaker pushed up against the side of my head.
So, do you guys have any questions about the OWA days? Because I know you guys were big fans as well.
I was in attendance at a lot of early OWA shows. The Vince Black match, was that the one at the Armory?
Yes, it was. Yeah, in the boxing ring.
Yep, and Mick's ring, wasn't it? His kickboxing ring.
Yeah, it was. The show was. They do three. It was a combination show. It was pro wrestling and kickboxing. Yep. And so we didn't have a ring yet. Maury had ordered the ring, and it kept getting delayed. So we just did the show in the boxing ring. And anybody knows anything about boxing rings, they don't give it all. Pro wrestling rings give a little bit, but this was a couple inches of carpet padding and steel girders supported all the way across. And there were 4 ropes and a concrete floor basically.
Yep. Wow. It's terrible. In your tenure, I do remember because I came in. Actually, my best friend was Nightshade back in the day.
Oh, cool.
Eric Dreer.
Yeah.
So when he came aboard, I became like a big fan. I was there. I donated the OWA's first ring bell.
Nice.
Did some ring music for some of the guys. Helped Maury out with some video stuff early on. In your tenure, what happened? Because I remember you started and then you disappeared and then you came back. So was there something personal going on between you and Maury? Was it just personal life?
I've never told this story publicly. So honestly, thank you for bringing it up.
Exclusive.
Yeah. So we'd just gotten done, and the school was starting to show some little groups. The older guys like me and Abu and Max, we were all close to 30, and and then Storm came in, and there were some older guys, and then there were some younger guys. And so we did a show. Maury and I made the decision we were going to do a show to try and keep kids safe. Basically, don't do this at home.
Right.
There was a story where a kid down in Florida was killed because his cousin did a rock bottom onto a sidewalk.
I remember that.
And so Maury and I were sitting there one night, and we're just like, dude, we got to do something. We got to do something. So we set up, and we set up a show at a grade school, and we did we did 3 matches, and we were actually in assembly. This wasn't at night. This was during the school day. And so what we did was we did the show, and after the 3 matches, then I got up there and we opened it up. We gave every secret that exists.
Right.
Show these kids that what they're seeing on TV is a performance. It is a dance. It is improvisation. It is training that you have to do these moves safely. And I mean, to the point where we brought one of the older teachers up into the ring, and we had talked to her already, and so we started asking the kids, what was the last time you saw a wrestler with a black eye?
Right.
But you saw these guys punch each other in the face 15 times. So we started showing them. So I laid into one of I don't even remember who it was in the ring with me at the time, but it might have been Gage. But so I lay into him 1, 2, 3, and then he takes the bump on the 4th shot, and the kids are going, "Oh my God!" And so then I bring Miss Johnson into the middle of the ring and stand there, and I'm like, "Just stand there. You're going to be just fine." And I laid 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 shots right into the side of her head, and she never moved a muscle. And so the kids are just loving it. They're like, "Oh my God, there's something to this."
Right.
And then you run the ropes. And then I clothesline that guy. So then, Mrs. Johnson, hold your arm right here. And I ran the ropes, and I ran under, and I ran around her, and then I ran into her arm and took the bump. And so Maury and I think we did a great thing. Mm-hmm. We think we did an absolute amazing thing, because even if it kept one kid from getting hurt doing this stuff at home, it was worth it.
Absolutely.
So we go back to I go back to the training center the next week, and that's when it was still at the Emerald Dragon dojo off of Blondo. So I go in there and I'm working out, and I hear some guys talking in the next room. And for the record, I got no heat with this guy now. It was probably just some dumb thing to say, or to even mention being young. I'm going to just pass it off as being young. But I hear Jaden in the other room saying that's a bunch of bullshit. You're giving up the kayfabe. Kayfabe was gone.
Yeah.
Kayfabe was absolutely gone. It was gone at that point. Vince gave it up. Vince McMahon gave it up. So he's like, all I hear is, and I don't know who he was talking to. He said he needs to go on his head. We need to put him on his head. That'll teach him a lesson.
Mm-mm.
We need to teach him that fucking radio guy doesn't need to come in here.
Right. And
so I knew exactly who he was talking about. And so I left, and I'm like, all right, well, that's unfortunate. I got 3 small kids at home.
Right.
The other aspect of it was Todd and Tyler were not making it easy for me to continue to wrestle. Because the old adage, there's no such thing as bad publicity. That's bullshit. When those two would just absolutely destroy anything that I was accomplishing or doing Basically, they were trying to get me to quit.
Right.
They were trying to get me to quit, and it was starting to negatively affect the OWA, them talking about it and me being a part of it. And so I made the decision that the last thing that Maury needed, we were starting to struggle a little bit anyway. The last thing that the OWA needed was more bad publicity, and he didn't need a split locker room.
Yeah.
And at that point, Jaden had the ears of 99% of the younger wrestlers. So I didn't feel like I was going to be safe in the ring at that point. And I also didn't want Maury to lose his business. And so I talked to Mo. I said, this has nothing to do with you. You've been amazing. And he made offers to do this or to do that, and that was going to do nothing but undermine everything that he tried to do.
Right.
And so I just made the decision for my safety and for Maury's well-being, business-wise and mentally, not having to deal with a split locker room. I walked away.
I appreciate you sharing that story. I've always wondered, and I kind of figured that's what happened because I too know of those clicks from just being with Eric Drew and Nightshade, seeing behind the backstage politics and stuff. It did get very clicky, so I totally get it, and it's not worth permanent injury or, again, as you said, throwing Mo's whole thing that he's trying to build up under the bus. So
absolutely,
thank you for sharing that story.
So, yeah, you bet. Once again, I've got no ill will towards Jaden at all, because once again, we all did dumb shit when we were young.
Yeah, for sure.
We have all said stupid things in the heat of the moment. And I've worked around him at Magnum for a couple of years, and there's no ill will on my end anyway towards that. I just look at it. It was unprofessional, but it was also probably just a stupid kid comment.
Sure. And if we're going to drop anyone on their head, let's drop the masked wrestler from Fox on his head, because he exposed it first. All right. And on national TV.
He did.
Shout out to the masked wrestler.
Shout out.
Yeah, you weren't going to drop him on his head. That was Harley Race.
Right.
But so then after some time off, you made a big comeback. And you had, I don't know if you had more than one match, but I know for sure you had that one match at the Firefighters Hall.
We did. So, and funny story, and to prove that there's no ill will, I ran into Hype Gotti and Jaden. My wife worked for Z92 at the time. She was hosting a New Year's Eve party, and those two showed up. And so he's like, "Hey, you need to come check out. You need to come check out this wrestling promotion over in Council Bluffs called Magnum Pro." And I was talking to Gotti about it, and he's like, "Yeah, it's a place to work. It's rough, but it's still a place to work." And so the next month, I showed up at Magnum, and I was just, wow, I need to do this. I need to do this because I had just come off of, I ruptured 2 discs in my neck a few years before that. And I wanted to make sure that I wanted to see if I was healed. And so after going to a couple of shows and talking to Nate, talking to Strife, sorry, after the shows, I'm like, "Hey, can I come into one of your training sessions before the shows? I just want to come in and see if I can still bump and just kind of see what I got." So I came in and it was me and a bunch of new guys, and they're all looking at me like, this dude's 40. I'm legitimately, I'm 41 years old. And I'm still in damn good shape, but I'm 6 foot, probably about 215 at the time. And I came in, and Stephen King, honestly, was running the training session. And I hadn't ever talked to him, and so he's like, "All right." So I was about halfway through the line, and these guys, he's like, "All right, front bump, back bump, front bump, back bump. Let's see what you got." And so I came in, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm either gonna blow the discs on the first one, or I think I'm good. And I hit, and it was fast, and it felt friggin' good. Oh my God, I loved it. I hit, and I popped right back up, and I face planted, and then back bump, face plant, back bump, and I stood back up with this huge grin on my face. And he looked at me and goes, somebody's got the bug. And I went to Nate. I went to Strife after that training session. And he's like, well, we're doing an OWA spot coming up here, Chip Douglas spot. And so Hype Gotti was the champ along with Devin Thomas. They were all working heel, and so he's like, anybody in the back wants to come out, so Huska, so I come out.
Nice.
And a fake challenge. Because I'm working in Council Bluffs. I can't work face in Iowa as a Husker. That doesn't make any sense. So my big return to the ring was as a heel. And so I come in there and we face off, and after I'm throwing all these Husker flags to all the fans, some are cheering, some are booing, and I get up into the ring, and I get in Gotti's face, and he goes, you think you want some, son? You want some, son? You people are all stupid. This is a buddy of mine, and we hug. And so I walk around the ring going, you're stupid, and you're stupid, and and I think I told like an 8-year-old kid that he was stupid, and I then I moved my finger up, and I'm like, I'm talking to you in the back.
No, you should have let that kid have it. It would have been a memory forever.
So then Red Wing comes in. Red Wing had just started working, and he comes in, and then he no-sells a few punches, and we hadn't even really talked much about it. I'm like, just no-sell everything I throw at you. I'll back up, and then just take my head off. Just take my head off. That's all you got to do. He goes, yes, sir. I think I can do that. It's so polite.
Right.
And so he comes in and he no-sells a couple of punches, and then I try to throw him, and I grab the wrong arm too, which just makes me feel stupid. And so I'm like, no, we're good. We're buddies. It's okay. And I take 2 steps back, and that guy launches and catches me with a meat hook, just an absolute lariat. And next thing I know, I'm on the back of my shoulders, and he just took it out of me, and I was just smiling as I'm being drugged feet first by Gotti and
yes,
and Devin out of the ring. I am just going, oh my God, this is amazing. So go to Strife, started meeting with Strife pretty regularly, just to talk wrestling, and this was right about the time that AJ Styles was being released from TNA. And we just kind of threw the idea. I don't remember who exactly came up with the idea, but he had been talking to me about using the Firefighter Union Hall for a show. And I'm like, well, you're going to get it cheaper if it's a charity event. And so like, well, let's do MDA. That's the Muscular Dystrophy Association is what our fire union does all the time. So let's just do that. Let's do a fundraiser for them. So they gave us the room, and he's like, well, we need a name. We need a big name. And so we found out that AJ Styles was $1,500. And I said, all right, well, here's the deal. I will help sell the packages. I will help sell. And not that he needed a ton of help selling, but maybe some fresh advertisers. And I said, but, he goes, you want a match, don't you? I said, yeah, I do. I said, I want a hardcore match. Find somebody bigger than me. I want a hardcore match. I very rarely have I worked with anybody bigger than me. Even at 215, I was still one of the taller guys. I never got the joy to get the piss kicked out of me by Abu or Max. I wanted somebody bigger, and so we made that happen. We brought AJ Styles in, and honestly, you know what? The first time I ever, and I completely spaced this off, was when I did a run-in at Harrah's Casino I believe Subby Anzaldo was the promoter for this.
Yep.
And Mantar and PN News showed up at the Monday Night Wrestling party. And so they're like, hey, you think you can give us some pub on the radio and all that, and we'll let you be part of the match if you want to come out? And I'm like, yeah, we could do that, absolutely. What do you want me to do? You think you can just make fun of us? I can do that. And so I just lay into these guys about being washed up, doing my Cartman voice, saying, oh, look at me, my name is Mantar, I got a buffalo head. I'm not fat. Oh, no, I'm really fat. And so I'm just laying into these guys. And so they start to they get pissed. And so the end of the night, I'm in the bathroom, and News comes in, and he goes, hey, brother, just to let you know, you did a really good job getting under our skin tonight. That was really good. And I couldn't tell if he was joking or if he was pissed.
Right.
He goes, but there's gonna be a receipt at the end of the night just to kind of create some drama for the show. So I'm like, all right, cool. What do you got? Well, we're gonna try and corner you, and you run out of the building. And then I'm like, okay, I can do that. So they chased me all over the Hooters, all over. And I ran out the front door. We get out in the parking lot, and we stop around the corner, and they're like, all right, that was great. And I'm thinking, okay, cool, we're done. They go, no, so here's what you're going to do. You're going to go in there, and you're going to, in the entryway, the concrete entryway, right by the registers, you are going to take the microphone, and you're going to welcome everybody, or thank everybody for coming out and all that, and I want you to make sure that everybody's looking at you. And we're going to come up behind you. And Antar's going to scoop you up, and he's going to body slam you on the floor, and then keep your head down, because I'm going to come in there and I'm going to throw the boots at you a couple of times, and then we're going to grab the microphone, probably call you a piece of shit, and invite everybody out to the wrestling on Saturday. Like, perfect, let's do that. Sounds good. Officially taken a body slam before, but Mike's 400 pounds. He should be able to pick me up, no problem.
Right.
It was spot on. I get in there, thanks, did the whole, they come up and they bump into me, and I did the whole reaching behind me, and then I did both hands, and I've got 800 pounds standing behind me, and I just went, shit. Spins me around, scoops me up, and it was the most textbook, flat back, he protected me really well. Scooped my head, when I hit the floor, my legs went numb. I mean, it was just this slap.
Right.
And my legs went numb, and I look up, and my girlfriend at the time is sitting at her table, and she had no idea any of this was coming. And everybody at my table is looking like, oh, Donnie's dead. So much for the free booze on Monday nights.
Right.
And so in that whole, I think I just broke my spine, I roll over, and I forget the part that News is coming with the boots. So I pick my head up.
Oof.
And it just ricochets down, and my eyebrow bounces off the floor, and he hits me with a couple of more, and I get up, and I am just blood. And I'm on my knees, and Mantar grabs the mic and starts yelling at me and calls me a piece of shit and shoves me down, and oh, everybody make sure to come out on Saturday, and then they just turn on and they walk out. So I show up, and they're like, all right, so here's what you're going to do. You're going to be at ringside. We got you a ringside seat. And then at the beginning of our match, they're wrestling Public Enemy. Those two were teaming up to wrestle Public Enemy. So we get everything planned backstage. And funny story about that is they're like, all right, so Donnie's going to come out. He's going to make fun of us. So he's going to be working face with you guys, because those two are working heel. Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge are working face. And so he's going to come up, and he's going to interfere at the beginning. We're going to jump him, and then you guys are going to try and save him. And then he's going to swerve on you at the end and take you guys out. And so he's got no friends. So hit him with a chair, and hit Rocco with a chair. Rocco goes, hey kid, you ever hit anybody with a chair? I go, no, I think I can figure out. He goes, hit me in the nuts. Just hit me in the nuts. I'm not taking a chair shot from just some guy in the street. So I'm ringside, And Mantar comes around, and I throw my beer in his face. And I would like to point out that the show was being announced and sponsored by K-Rock, our direct competition at Z92. Subby and Zaldo's granddaughter was the ring announcer. So I slide in the ring, and I'm wearing a Z shirt. I slide in the ring, and this looks like the biggest dick move that anybody could ever do. And I reach down and I grab the microphone, and before I go after Mike and Paul, I look at her and I go, "My name's Donnie Dodge from Z92's Todd and Tyler show. If you ever want to work for a real radio station, maybe you come put in an application." To this girl, to this young girl, and I'm like, "Oh, well, working heel now."
Yeah.
So I go after Mike, and the key was Mike was out of the ring. We did the same thing we did at Hooters, except this time it was just Paul. I'm in there, and I threw some stuff at Mike. Like, it's amazing that you can stay around Omaha this long. I didn't know SeaWorld had such a liberal vacation plan. And I said, the cue for Paul to come in, for Paul to step in, is, "Why don't you eat a carrot, you fat tub of shit?" Was the cue, and I got, "Why don't you eat a carrot, you?" And I got hit with a PN News forearm right across the shoulders, and it was stiff. Wasn't snug, wasn't tight. Wasn't light. It was stiff, and so we worked the whole match. It was great. I was involved in the entire thing, and then Rocco goes out, takes out a table on the floor, and we end up. Mantar at one point goes, he leans down and goes, "Hey brother, you think you could take a moonsault from you?" Yeah, I've been practicing them. I'm like, no, I'm not taking a moonsault from you. Absolutely not. So I swerve on these guys at the end. Rocco, both of those two get back in the ring. Mantar and News took a powder, and they're on the outside, and I'm holding up these guys' arms. We're celebrating. We're kicking the crap out of the SOBs, the South Omaha boys, as they're calling themselves. And they both turn their backs to me, and I low blow one, and I low blow the other, and I spit on both of them. News and Mantar slide in. They get the pin. They get the win. Now I have to walk back to the locker room through the crowd, and I'm like, nobody here likes me. Nobody here, especially that girl that works for K-Rock. She really doesn't like me. But now I gotta walk back, and there's no railings, there's no security, there's nothing, and this beer can just goes right past my head, and then I got hit with a chair, and it's one of those big steel unfoldable 40-pound sons of bitches, and that hits me in the back, and I'm like, oh, okay, I should run, and so I get back to the locker room, and the boys make their way back, and they're like, good job. No, it was good business. Good job. That was awesome. I'm like, all right, guys, well, I'll see you later. And then Donnie's like, where are you going, kid? You don't want to go out there. They throw chairs at you. Good heat, but they throw chairs at you. You're a dead man if you walk out there. Those people don't know that we were all in on this. They might, but they're not acting like it. So they end up getting me a sweatshirt. Huge oversized sweatshirt, and they end up escorting me and my wife out to our car because security didn't want anything to do with it, because security just thought it was part of the show and it was no big deal. But I end up getting escorted out of Harris Casino. Not the first time. But my first time escorted out of Harris Casino in a sweatshirt by PN News and Rocco Rock.
It sounds like
that story.
It sounds like the key to your survival is oversized clothing.
It really is. I like that.
To be able to get that kind of heat, though, has got to be just amazing. To live like, you don't get that kind of heat anymore at all. in any type of fashion where people want to actually physically harm the person. So that's an awesome memory to have.
Yeah, and it's really fun. The last time I did the heat was when I made the Hall of Fame announcement for Brian Blade at the MWA show. I went down there and I had my shirt underneath the ring, where Huska keeps his stuff hidden underneath the ring, and I was the very first OWA hardcore champion, and Brian was the very last one. And so I've got the belt, and I came out, and he had just won his match, and I came out heel, and I'm yelling at the crowd, and it just worked. It worked so well. I made people wait. I'm like, hold on, I need something, and I walk all the way over to the traveling display, and I grab my hardcore belt. I'm like, Blade's got a belt, I want a belt. You people can wait until I go get my belt, and they're booing me, and so we get up in the ring, and we sell the whole thing about. I sell the whole thing about, I was never technically beaten for this title, and you were the last title holder. So you know what? I got a great idea. I got something for you underneath the ring. And I went and I put on my Hall of Fame shirt, and then people finally started to tap in.
Yeah.
And then announced. And so I got a guy comes up to me after the intermission. He goes, "Hey, I just want to let you know, I'm really sorry." "Sorry for what?" He goes, "I was booing you. I was booing you because you were being really rude. And you were like saying stuff that wasn't cool, but then you went in there, and then I saw it was just an act, and you just kind of messing with us." And I'm like, that kind of makes me feel good. Right? You went exactly where you drove right where I wanted you to drive. You came along with me for the ride, and I'm like, no, man, it's no harm. He goes, "I'm glad you did that, because I was going to follow you out to the parking lot after the show." I'm like, oh shit, okay. Oops.
Steel reel to me, damn it. I love it. That's outstanding.
So, in mentioning the Hall of Fame, as your career in the ring kind of came to an end, what prompted you to start the Hall of Fame then?
You know what? I'm a huge history fan. I do historical documentaries as a hobby. I like to think, and I've always thought this way, I like to think that each and every one of us can accomplish something in their lives that you will be remembered at least for a long time. Not forever, but you've done something, so when you're gone, your legacy continues. And I thought to myself, there's so many guys out there that have not gotten the recognition that they deserve. There are so many people out there that don't know what these people have done. And I was honored and lucky enough to be friends with Mad Dog Vachon. I was honored to be trained by him in certain things. And Maurice was just a sweetheart. And it was always, it doesn't matter if you're looking at the mat or if you're looking up at the lights. At the end of the day, if you did your job, you did good. And that's kind of what I wanted to do. Well, now I can't wrestle. And so I wanted to make sure that I could still hang out with the guys. Still wanted to be around the guys, be around wrestling. And I thought, what better way than to create something that doesn't exist, the Nebraska Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, and let's do it my way. We're not going to get a building. We're going to do a traveling display. We are going to induct people. We're going to have websites. We've got social media. Buildings nowadays are almost unnecessary. So we started with that, and the very first class was chosen by me. There's no two ways about it. There wasn't any other way that I could do it. But you look at that first class, and there isn't anybody that's going to argue that any one of those people deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And every one of them is for different reasons. There's no set, you have to have wrestled at this promotion for this many years, or made it to the WWF, or made it to WCW. It's, what did you do for professional wrestling? Did you leave your mark? It's really kind of whether that mark was being a trainer, or whether that mark was being a promoter, or a wrestler, or both. Or did you leave your mark by being one of the one of the most recognizable gimmicks in all of wrestling. Everybody's in there for a different reason, and every one of them in there is deserving. So I wanted to start it that way. I wanted to start the Hall of Fame just because, number one, it was a selfish reason. I still wanted to be around the guys. But the more I dug into it, I realized that there's so many stories out there that people don't know, and there's a generation that has lost the information about what Mad Dog and what Baron von Raschke and what Ted DiBiase have done. Not everybody out there is a 50-year-old wrestling nerd. So it's my job, and it's Mikey's job that he accepted to make sure that what these people did is never ever forgotten.
And I think one thing that sets the Nebraska Hall of Fame apart from any of the rest of them is we actually recognize what has happened in the state of Nebraska, and like the OWA. And something that was just recently introduced is the video vault.
Yes, so the video vault is Maury Swanger's VHS tapes that he gave to Pete Sanctions, and Pete transferred all of that stuff over to DVD. And then those DVDs were given to me by Maury to be the keeper of the history, to put it in a box and hide it away, never to be seen again like the end of Indiana Jones. No. So I said top men. So what I'm doing now is once a week, I am uploading shows from the OWA, and they are exactly what you think they are. Some of them, the cameras are moving. They got somebody at ringside, but back then, a lot of them, it was just a static camera, static VHS camera, and I put them on the website. I don't put them on the social media pages because they'd get taken down because of the intro music. Right. And I want all of it to be able to be seen. I want the intros to be able to be seen. And so it's at our website, which is prowrestling-nebraska.com. The OWA Video Vault, we put out a show, sometimes half a show. Like for this week instance, the show ran 3.5 hours. And so I divided it up. And so you can go there and you can watch some of your favorite wrestlers. You can watch Nightshade. You can watch Blade. You can watch Austin Storm, Gotti, Babyface Tony Cortez. Oh man,
Muscles Malone.
Muscles Malone. Oh my God.
Larry Lumps.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the days of the Untouchables.
Yep.
It's so much fun. Vertigo. Oh my God. It's so much fun to put these matches in and to upload them because I remember so many of these shows and just things that I forgot. Is amazing. Well, I keep getting hit with garbage cans. It's amazing the things that you forget.
Right.
So we're doing that. We are honoring the locals because without a lot of these locals, the Hall of Fame, there may not have been an NWA or a Magnum Pro or a PWP.
Right. Well, PWP was made by what was that guy's name? He used to work OWA. It was like when OWA and died, they split to two factions. And
like an NRW or something like that.
Yeah. I can't remember the kid who made it.
NLW.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so many guys were trained. So many guys were trained by guys that were part of the OWA. Yep. Because I know Gotti was trained at the OWA. Gotti came in as a young kid. And he was talented as hell. So you get a guy like Storm and Maury and myself a little bit. Most of his charisma is natural. He didn't need a lot of help with that. But then he turns around and he trained Strife. And how many people have been trained by Strife? And it just keeps going down the road of you just keep paying it forward.
Yep.
So with as the Hall of Fame has continued, and by the way, I'm very honored that you brought me in because it's, I've learned a lot, and I've, had a lot of experience. What are some of the things that surprised you in your research of these inductees?
The amount of wrestling that they did. These guys were working. These guys and gal, Helen Hill, they were working 3-4 nights a week. They were running people hack on the WWE for all the shows that they do, and keeping these guys on the road for 320 days a year. They were doing that back then too, and they were doing it by car. They didn't have the luxury of flying, and they were doing multiple promotions, and the sheer amount of work that they were doing. And also keep in mind, back when they were wrestling in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, the speed limit was like 45 miles an hour. So it'd take you 12 hours just to get to Minneapolis from Omaha. So I think that's probably what it is the sheer amount of matches that are popping up, and then just the sheer amount of different federations that there were throughout the country that these guys and gal worked.
Well, and you got to remember, back then, matches weren't, we have a 20-minute time limit. They were
Right.
hours.
Hours. Oh my God. Yeah, they were, definitely.
Yeah. And part of having what is, as far as we know, the world's largest traveling Hall of Fame display.
That's what we're claiming until somebody tells us different.
That's how you do it.
Yeah. Are the number of artifacts and memorabilia that we have actually found. What are some, just give people an idea of some of the things that they might see.
Well, we actually, from the In Your House pay-per-view at the Civic Auditorium, the only pay-per-view that I'm aware of at the Civic Auditorium, WWF pay-per-view, we have Mad Dog Vachon's leg that at HBK hit Diesel in his last televised event for the WWF before he jumped ship to WCW. And with that leg was given to us by Mad Dog's family. He kept it in the basement, and being the wrestler that he is, he autographed it before he passed away. We've got a lot of pictures from Mad Dog's collection. We've got a lot of really cool things from him. We have from Dave Sullivan, we have the surviving half of the Dave Sullivan Hulkamaniac robe that was given to him by Hulk Hogan, hand painted backstage, and when he was splitting away from Kevin Sullivan and becoming the Ultimate Hulkamaniac. And we've got that. We've got a pair of Dave Sullivan shorts, trunks that he wore in the ring. He also gave us a pair of trademark red knee pads that were given to him by Hogan to wear when he was wrestling basically in Hogan's gear. We've got, coming very soon, we've got a pair of trunks from Lance Cade's mother that she is going to be lending to the Hall of Fame. We've got a lot of really cool stuff. It's not just about the artifacts, though. It's not imagine going to a museum and going, oh, that's cool, but you're not learning anything about it. So we want to be that guide as you go through the display. So you're actually going to learn something. You're not just going to look at it and go, oh, cool, that's a leg. You're going to learn why it's there. You're going to learn when it happened, and then you're going to learn more about that person. You're going to have the opportunity to do that, and you'll even have the opportunity to do that on your own, because starting at the Comic-Con that we did out in Grand Island, we have QR codes. So you can walk up and it says, you want to learn more about Dave Sullivan? Scan this QR code. And boom, it takes you right to the webpage, Dave Sullivan's webpage on our site. And you can do that for almost every wrestler that we have there. We're having an issue with one page, the Mantar pages, where it's not doing what we'd like it to do. So we're still kind of discussing on how to fix that problem. But I'm sure we'll get back to you when that one's up and running. But we will. You can go to our website. You can come see the display. It's an interactive display that you can learn and be entertained by seeing some of the cool things that we've got.
Now I want to stop you for a second because these two bastards no-sold your joke, but that is probably my favorite thing that's ever been said on this website. Oh, cool, that's a leg. I just want I want to point that out. I laughed. Everybody else no-sold it. I couldn't let it go.
Hashtag, oh cool, there's a leg.
Well, and not only is it interactive, it's also multimedia because you have the like for example, the legs there, and there might be some video of different spots, different matches, OWA matches going on. So this thing is you can totally immerse yourself, and that's one thing that I've heard. That this display, you can totally immerse yourself in the history of Nebraska wrestling. And
that's what we love when we see, and you're exactly right. We've got video running of Dave Sullivan being given the robe. We've got video of them cutting the promo before Clash of Champions 29 when he was tagging with Sting and Hulk Hogan, being interviewed by Mean Jokerland, by the way, reffed by Mr. T. I mean, you talk about deep water,
right,
for a kid from Omaha, Nebraska that played high school ball at West Side and graduated from UNO and didn't quite make it in the NFL, and now he's in the ring with Kevin Sullivan, with the Butcher, with Earthquake, Mr. T, Sting. It's amazing, and we have all of that playing on a TV right next to the Robe. That you see as it's all part of history, and there's so many times that I've been standing there, and Mikey, I know you've been part of this too, where a guy in his 30s or 40s walks up with a kid that's 10, and well, Dad, who's that? Oh my God, this guy was the greatest when I was your age. He did this and he did that, and so now the kid's on his phone and he's learning about this and watching matches that so they're bonding over their love of wrestling, and that is, if we can make a dad and a teenager get along for a night because they have the same love of wrestling, that's a cool thing. That's a really cool thing to be able to do, and it's an unintended great consequence of putting this traveling display together.
Now I got a question, Mikey.
Go ahead.
So you speak, love of wrestling. I'm just curious, and this is a fan question. If, sir, you were to have a Mount Rushmore of professional wrestlers for you, I would like, you can do 3 normal ones, but I want your 4th one to be a deep dive that I wouldn't expect.
Oh man! All right, well, Sting.
Okay.
Sting would be my number 1. Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, these are pretty cookie cutter ones. I'm going to say Rock.
Okay.
Just because I share a birthday with him.
Now your 4th one has to be more obscure, and I want the reason why.
Bulldog Bob Brown.
That is obscure. And why is
that's deep as hell?
Why is that?
That man could throw a punch. That man could. He wasn't going to be fancy when he was tagging with Marty Jannetty. Marty Jannetty was the high flyer, and Bob Brown was the animal of that Legion of Doom. He was just going to come in there and just destroy people. He was old school. He was tough. He backstage, the things that I've read about him, he was. You hear the legend of Haku.
Yes.
Where nobody wants to mess with Haku. Well, Bob Brown was that guy backstage.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those that would be an odd pairing, but yeah, I think Bulldog Bob Brown, and he was one of my first favorite wrestlers as a kid. So yeah, I am going to go Bob Brown.
Okay. Sorry, Mikey, didn't mean to hijack that. Go ahead and back.
No, that's fine. Another interesting benefit I would say that we have is, and this was one of the coolest things I had ever seen. It was the day that I met Dave Sullivan, and there were people looking at the artifacts. They were watching the video, and then they looked over and they go, "Wait a minute, that's you!" And they grabbed a picture, or you grabbed a picture off of the display and said, here, sign that. And so we actually get, not only do you get to come see this history, but sometimes you get to actually meet the folks that are a part of the history.
Yeah, that was Dave. He and I'm not talking out of school here. When he left the WCW, it left a bad taste in his mouth. The way that it happened. And so when we invited him back, or invited him to come out to some of the shows, he was leery on if people were going to remember him. You know, and that is a terrible feeling, because I've had that happen to me, where somebody knows me from my days in radio, and they'll introduce me to somebody that's their friend and go, "Oh, hey, this is Donnie Dodge," and I'm like,
"Who?
Okay,
yeah, right."
Well, he was on the Untitled show. I have no idea who you are,
right?
And that's a shitty feeling. That guy didn't mean to do that, but at the same time, I'm like, dude, stop introducing me to people. I've been off the radio for 20 friggin' years.
Right, just say I'm your friend Donnie.
Yeah, exactly. So Dave was a little apprehensive to come back, and he didn't want to make a big hoopla on it, and he didn't want to get pictures done or anything like that. Well, I printed up a bunch of pictures, and we had him sitting there. And I remember that instance. It was at the Magnum Pro show, and at the Ramada Ballroom, and this kid was just like, "Oh my God, this is. Do you have anything that I could that he could sign? Do you have like a napkin or something, a piece of paper that he could sign?" And I'm like, "No, here, take this." It was the 8x10 that we took of him in his robe, and we made that kid's night.
Right.
Made that kid's night for a $2 8x10 that was part of the display that I can replace immediately. And it's about doing that little extra things to keep the crowd engaged.
And just it creates that ripple effect. You don't know what type of impact you might have had on that young man. He could now be a professional wrestler or something of the like, you know?
He could. Absolutely.
At least a big fan of Dave Sullivan.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
for sure.
Yeah. Like I got Husker pictures back here if you want one of those. I don't know who that is.
I did this shit too. Rocco Rock, right in the nuts.
Right.
Well, and not only did it ignite maybe that spark in that young fan, but to see that spark in Dave.
Yes.
And now, if he's making an appearance with us, I just reached back and grabbed a piece of memorabilia from Ralph the Rabbit.
Yeah.
You can get an official Evod Sullivan Ralph the Rabbit foot. Yeah. Yep. He really enjoys coming out and interacting with the fans, and that's something that we're preserving for the future generations.
I tell you what, ultimately,
and you said it perfectly there, Mike, and that's why I was excited to add you to the mix with the Hall of Fame, because you and I are of one mind when it comes to what our mission is, and it's not about us, it's not about money, it's not about recognition, it's about making sure that everybody's remembered.
It's ultimately, it's just a pure endeavor, is what it is.
Yes.
Your hearts are in it for the right reasons, and it's a beautiful thing, and cherishing the moments. Like, you can tell how much you guys love that, giving that moment to that kid and to Dave. Like that's a beautiful thing, man. And it's, if one thing, like all the memorabilia, all that, it's a pure endeavor to like preserve history, and that's important that that portion of it's out there, because because you're always going to get pushback no matter what you do in life, period, and like especially something like a Hall of Fame, which is ultimately just an attraction for fans. In addition, but like brass tacks, you want people to, it's a reason to come look at something. And you want to have people in there that people want to see. Like, there's interesting stories all over the place, and who cares who thinks who's deserving or what, you know what I mean? Like, ultimately, it's something where you can be like, hey, this happened, look at this. And it's just a really cool situation, the whole thing.
To touch on your deserving, part of it, I would like to clear one thing up. So in order to get into this Hall of Fame, it needs to be agreed upon by the surviving members of the Hall of Fame. So what I initially did for the second year was I gave a list to the surviving members of the Hall of Fame, and they were allowed to vote on who they thought needed to get in. And as innocent of a project as that sounds, it turned into a shit show, is what it turned into. And so some adjustments had to be made. But every person that gets into the Hall of Fame is agreed upon by everybody that's still with us. They get sent a list, and that list is usually 10 names long. And all right, who do you think that it should be? Some people think it should be all of them. Some people think it should be 3 of them because maybe they've got reasons why they think this one shouldn't be in, or maybe wouldn't appreciate it. There's also maybe we don't want to do a class of 10 because we're going to run out of people to put in, which is a legitimate concern. So everybody since the last 3 years, we get a list, we discuss. Now, I have corrected the mistake of making a giant group chat. That didn't work well. But we had individual messages back and forth to the members saying, okay, here's the people I'm thinking about. You know, what are your thoughts? And that's how it happens. It's not this isn't Donnie's Hall of Fame. This isn't Mikey Taylor's Hall of Fame. This is the Hall of Fame chosen by actual Hall of Fame members, which to me makes the most sense. Out of all of the Hall of Fame, you should be voted in by your peers.
Yeah.
And not by a promoter, not by anybody else. It should be a choice. I actually don't have any choice whatsoever in who gets in. I give them a list, I give them the reasons why, and then they make the choice.
And I think one of the neatest things, and with the advent of some reality type shows that have come out lately, where certain promotions are going out and reclaiming their artifacts, the question has been asked: who owns the Hall of Fame, Donnie?
Nobody. Fans do.
Yep.
Fans. It's in my basement right now, locked away, secured, heavily insured, armed guard. Nobody's going to touch it. But when I'm gone, it's not getting pieced out. This is going to somebody else that cares as much as we do. It's going to continue. This Hall of Fame, no items are for sale from this Hall of Fame. Absolutely none of them. They mean too much to the fans to be locked away in some dude's basement or stuck in a warehouse somewhere. This is the People's Hall of Fame display. This is the People's Hall of Fame. And once again, when I decide that my time is up and I'm not going to be part of it anymore, which isn't going to be for a really long time, we are going to find somebody that is capable and willing to carry on the tradition and carry on the Hall of Fame.
How's it all funded?
Started out by me. Kind of like a pro wrestling career. You kind of make your choices on what you want your hobbies to be and what you want your life to be and what you're willing to spend your money on. And I've been lucky enough to get some sponsors. We're always looking for new sponsors. We're always looking for new opportunities to make money. People can donate, whether we're at an event or at the bottom of every page at prowrestling-nebraska.com. There is a PayPal where you can donate. Donate to that. All that money will goes towards the upkeep and the creation of new display items.
And there's also been a mention of if you want to have the Hall of Fame at your event. That's a possibility. Yeah.
Reach out to us. If you have a business that you think you want to draw some wrestling fans to, or just kind of an out of the box thing to bring to your business, give us a call. Let's talk. if you're throwing a huge birthday party for your husband, and you've got a big area that this display could be put up, and he's a huge wrestling fan, and all his buddies are wrestling fans, give us a call. We're willing to talk. We are willing to go above and beyond and do events like that to make money, to make the Hall of Fame what it is.
Right. The other portion of this is, not only are we providing an outlet for the history to be preserved, but in some cases we're providing an outlet for the families to celebrate the careers that their loved ones may have had, and sometimes the loved one not with us anymore. We've had some great experiences with that as well. If you want to maybe discuss some of those.
Sure. With me, it was Joanne Dusek, Joe Dusek's surviving daughter. She was nice enough to welcome me into her home and talk wrestling. And then obviously with Dave, bringing Evad Sullivan back to meeting Bill and becoming friends with Bill has been fantastic. Reaching out to family members, reaching out to Lance Cade's mom and sister, asking their permission to include him in the Hall of Fame. That's one thing that I haven't said, is everybody that's in this Hall of Fame, we've done everything humanly possible to reach out and to make contact with family members, make sure that they're okay with us including them in our Hall of Fame. So we've done that with Lance. We've done that with everybody. I think there's maybe a couple instances where we haven't been able to make contact. That would be Gorgeous George. There's just nobody left, unfortunately, to get the permission. But everybody else that's in, we've been given the okey doke either by them or by family members, and almost to a person, they've been like, "Oh my God, that's great, thank you so much," and that's awesome.
Yeah. So, do you guys have any further questions on the Hall of Fame for Donnie?
I am good, sir.
Yeah, I think we've covered.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, just to touch on some other things, Donnie, it was mentioned that you are a podcast host as well. And I know personally, I enjoy the podcast that you put out. You maybe plug your podcast.
I would love to. Hey, Jessica! Jessica! Come here. You don't have to come on camera. This isn't what the podcast is. This is boring.
It's me yelling at Jessica.
My wife, Jessica Dahl, former Z92, outstanding disc jockey. She is standing at the doorway. Jessica, say hi to the Russian Leg Sweep podcast. Just yell hi.
Hello.
Hello.
There it is.
Hello. Hi.
They wanted, they're giving me a chance to talk about our podcast.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, yeah, it's called the Turn Your Brain Off podcast. And we're available on every streaming platform. It's also available at Jessica Dahl. It's Dahl with 1L.com. And we are doing our best to bring back 90s radio. Hit radio. Bring back when it's just people trying to make each other laugh. That's all we do, is try to make each other laugh. There's no negativity. There's no politics. We don't talk religion. We barely talk sports. It's just, we talk music and we talk being married and our life experiences. Both of us, we've got, 30 plus years in radio between the two of us, and we've got some great stories. And we want to take radio back to what it was in the 90s, funny, when it was just about being funny and not about agendas or just who's the loudest. And so the Turn Your Brain Off podcast, I think we just finished up episode 22. And they're all usually about 40 minutes long. 20 minutes long. The longest is 40 minutes long. We did a Christmas special. And it's like you're listening to the older people in the room might remember, like Donnie and Marie, like Christmas specials, the old TV Christmas specials where they'd bring in a bunch of celebrity hosts or guest stars. And so what we did was we modeled it after that, and we sang songs, we sang Christmas carols, and then we did. I do a bunch of my impressions on there, and it's all edited together. So like if you're listening to a 70s, early 80s style Christmas extravaganza, as we call it. And one quick thing in that is we do jokes. So it's all these celebrities doing jokes, kind of like they used to do on Hee Haw. And so we did one of them, and this is the only one I'll do, is it's Joe Pesci and Kermit the Frog, and they're delivering a joke. And it's, hey Joe!
Hey Kermit, what do you got? What do you got for me?
How much did Santa pay for his sleigh?
I don't know, Kermit. How much did Santa pay for his friggin' sleigh?
Nothing. It was on the house.
Oh, that's pretty good. You got me there. You got me. You got it. That was funny.
Funny how?
No, Kermit, you got me all wrong.
No, Anthony, he knows what he said. He's a big boy. He goes, tell me what the heck is so funny about me, Joe? Tell me.
No, you got me there. You got me.
So, it's not just impressions. It's not just lame impressions. It is, we talk everything. We talk just being married and making each other just do dumb stuff. And so if you're looking for something to listen to, that's Turn Your Brain Off podcast.
Great podcast to listen to while you're driving, because it's,
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a nice short, everything's nice and short and good, makes a nice drive.
Okay.
And might I say, spot on, Jessica.
Spot on, Jessica. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Donnie, one other thing that I wanted you to talk about real quick was your documentary.
Sure.
Sure.
So I started doing documentaries. I started doing videos. I was taking care of my dad when he was on hospice, and I just needed something to kind of turn my brain off, ironically enough. And so I found some really, really cool historical, some really, really cool stories that had basically been forgotten. And all of them are Nebraska based. And as I dug into them, I realized how much I liked the research aspect of the process. And so I've done 5 documentaries. 4 of them are historical documentaries. My very first one was I followed my wife on her last day at Z92. It's called Jessica Doll Saying Goodbye. And that one will just absolutely rip your heart out. It's just, it's gut-wrenching. But the rest of the historical ones, they've done pretty good. I've got one that follows the life of a banker, originally from Wisconsin, and he moved to Oakland, Nebraska, in the late 1800s, and at one point he gave a 40-acre park to the city, and I found a ton of pictures and a lot of really cool information out about this guy that had been completely forgotten. I've got one about a World War II bomber pilot from here in Tacoma called Chatterbox, and that one actually screened at the Las Vegas Film Festival. I've got 2 about Nebraska football. The first one's called All the King's Men, 1910 Cornhusker football, and it follows the life of head coach William King Cole and the 1910 Nebraska football team. And then the last one that I've done is, it's called Dual Threat Football and Family, and it follows the life of Nebraska's very first dual threat quarterback, Jerry Warner, from the 1910-1911 football team, and then he also became a World War I fighter pilot.
Oh, wow.
And those are all available on my website for free at dodgewell.com.
Very good. You guys have anything else that you want to
Sam,
plug?
you got anything?
No, sir. I am good.
I think this has been terrific. Thank you so much, Donnie. You please come back anytime and talk wrestling with us.
Oh, I would absolutely. Oh my God, I would love to. You're going to get sick of me. I would absolutely love to talk wrestling, because I love talking wrestling with not only people that have the same Mike Tyson picture on their wall, but I love talking wrestling with people that love it as much as I do. And to throw out names and to just, have you ever noticed that wrestling fans
are the only ones that can have an entire conversation with one another just by saying names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can walk up and go, Bulldog Bob Brown, ho ho, Baron Von Raschke,
Yeah.
Bad Dog, Vern Gagne.
Yeah.
And you'll hear it at every show.
Yeah.
You will hear guys do that.
Absolutely.
Names and catchphrases.
Names and catchphrases. But thanks, guys. This was a blast, and yeah, if you're ever looking at trying to get out of watching a lame WCW pay-per-view, just give me a call.
Hold on. What if we want you to watch a lame WCW pay-per-view and talk about it? That's the best.
We can do that too. Definitely.
Excellent. Well, I tell you what, guys. Again, check us out on all the social medias. Check out all Donnie's social medias. I got a show tonight. Go to the waiting room. Watch us perform. It's going to be all three of us are going to be there. It's going to be a good time.
Oh God, I gotta dress up tonight, don't I? Fuck.
Yeah, you do, buddy. You better get situated.
All right.
And I mean that's all I got this week, man. Tune in next week. I guess we're going to watch WCW's Uncensored, maybe,
1996.
unless we can find something else to do.
I'm busy Saturday. Sorry.
This is the Russian Leg Sweep. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Bye, guys.
It's the Russian Leg Sweep.